the junior singles here.
No, we won't. And actually, there's a couple of those scullers. I think the Gloucester Hartbury sculler who contested that event is actually in the senior lightweight single, I believe, potentially. And we've got Lucy Glover, obviously, from Warrington, who's won this event in junior singles previously, contesting elite singles here today, even though she is still a junior. So we won't be seeing some of those medalists from national schools actually contesting this event. So that's opened the door for some of these, up-and-coming semi-finalists, finalists, who weren't in the medals, to come here and claim the title at Henley Women's Regatta.
Which makes it nice, doesn't it? Because you these single scullers know each other really well. And it must be a bit soul-destroying if you go and you've got those top scullers and you know you're going to race them again. You've worked hard, you know you're not quite at that standard. And to see them go into another event, as you say, it does open it out a wee bit, which is great. And we can see that from Megan. And she's sculled really well. We're back down to the start now for race 160. We've got Bailey from Christchurch Rowing Club on the Berkshire station, which is closest to us here. And then we've got Barlow from Nottingham Rowing Club. And look at look at the flame coming from the umpires, but it wasn't the flame at all. It was just a big yellow post.
Well, I think for a good reason, because the sculler from Nottingham having a sort of tickle with the booms and with the piles on the far side, and actually, contrary to popular belief, the booms are not the big sticky up white things. They're actually called piles. The booms are the sort of long horizontal wooden things that keep the course in alignment. So a very close call there for that sculler from Nottingham, which hasn't helped her very much, because it's allowed her competition there on the near side of your screen, which is the sculler from Christchurch Rowing Club, Miss Bailey, crew number 311, just to now open up about a boat length worth of clear water over her opponent.
And again, we mentioned it earlier that when you get close to those booms, close to the piles, it does send your heart rate up and will affect not just your rhythm, but your breathing. And breathing sounds so obvious, doesn't it? But breathing is so important at the beginning of the race, where you move from your start, you transition into your rhythm of your race. And if that gets affected, it will affect the rest of the race. So as they go past our commentary point here, it is the Christchurch sculler with about 4 or 5 lengths of clear water now, and looking very comfortable, nice and long, going to the middle of the course, and she is feeling pretty happy that she's got that, so that she can, as we keep saying, these people have got more than one race during the day. She will want to conserve that energy.
And I think it's going to be actually really hard for us here in the commentary, and for a lot of other people watching, to decipher, who are the strong contenders in this single sculls race from these early races, because we've not had any close races. We've not had anyone who's, been so phenomenal, like, in the way that they've led off the start. All of them have had, quite a big gap, all the leaders in the previous 4 races, and actually that's going to make these latter races very interesting to see whether, they're all the same speed, these leaders, because actually when you open it out across the event, we might actually have some very close races, although you wouldn't believe it sort of watching this now, would you? So
yeah. I mean, you can see it there that it's quite a lead now that the Christchurch sculler has got, and she will be conserving her energy now. It's a really weird thing. It's gladiatorial, isn't it? Single scullers against single scullers, and it's a bit, sometimes to me it's a bit like a squash match. You can play someone and beat them 9-0. You can play somebody else and lose 9-0. But actually the difference between the players aren't that much.
Yeah.
And though this Christchurch sculler is well out in lead, there's other factors here that at play. We looked at the Nottingham scull right at the beginning. That steering will have cost her mentally and physically really dear. So if they had the same race, in an hour's time, it could be quite different.
And, in saying that, actually, once you're up and you're ahead by that much, you have so much extra time to play with to make sure your steering's absolutely on point, to make sure that you are, conserving your energy well, that you're listening and taking in all of the sort of coaching points that you've been given on the run up to this point. It lets you relax that little bit more to focus on what you're trying to do. Whereas, if this Christchurch sculler then comes up against somebody else from, the next round in the draw, and that race is so much tighter, what we actually then find is that, some of the points that may not be being highlighted right now, under pressure, that might change the way that she's racing quite a lot.
But what it's allowed her to do, if you look at her sculling there, her shoulders are really relaxed. Yeah. And lots of coaches will look at the shoulders, because if we go back to perhaps to the other sculler, I bet her shoulders are tighter. She's chasing. And that will take energy away, cramp up the muscles, all of these things. So even though she's well ahead and she's rowing at a lower rate, she's much more relaxed. There's possibly more power going through, just because of that relaxed state of mind.
And I think, going back to the point that you made earlier about, squash matches, and a good analogy there, that although we're seeing huge leads from some of these single scullers, actually when they go into the next round, they could find that they'd be quite some way behind or in front or whatnot. I think that in the smaller boats, the ability to change pace is so much easier as well. We can see the leads change probably so much easier, again, probably more so in the later rounds. So when we come to the finals of these singles events, of the double events, of these smaller boats, where speed change comes so much quicker and easier because you can pick up the boat, it's much lighter for you to respond. And when it's just you in a single scull and you decide to go, it's just you that's determining that. So in the later rounds for this event, we'll probably see much closer racing and the lead changing quite a number of times. So that'll be a good event to follow through today and tomorrow. And we're now almost at the opposite end of the scale on a sculling perspective, because we're back to junior quads. And actually, I was completely wrong earlier when I was saying it was a smaller event than the doubles. They've just spread it over the course of the day. So we're back now to the heats of the junior quads, and this is a race between St Paul's girls, who are currently leading on the far side of your picture over the crew from Thames Rowing Club.
They've gone out pretty quickly. If it's the same crew from National Schools Regatta, they made the semi-finals. So they're no slouches at all, coming up against Thames Rowing Club, who both of these crews made it through the time trial this morning. So they will have been on this course, but not side by side so far. But it's St Paul's there who've got about 2 lengths advantage at the moment. They've not relaxed yet. They're not going away from Thames.
And I think until you've got about 3 lengths, you can't relax, because there's always that worry that if you take it down that little bit too much, you could open the door a little bit. So I don't think they will relax until they've gained at least another length, and I'm not sure that they will actually, because they seem to be moving at around a similar speed right now. I think once they've both settled, and Paul's have obviously got the better start there, they're actually moving at a very similar speed, the Thames crew. So
that slight wobble there, actually from Thames, they got quite close to the booms just at the bottom of the picture, you might have seen, and they've had to adjust, come back on, and just as you do that, the bow of the boat is then coming across the river, and what often happens, as Camilla's now pointing at the screen, is that once you make that adjustment one way, of course you go too far one way, and then you have to make the adjustment on the other side. So you really have to keep your nerve and keep that boat as straight as you possibly can. And we're back down the course again, and we've got one of another set of favourites, I would say, Camilla, Henley, and they'll be upset with that bit of steering because there is no other crew that has been on this course more often than Henley.
Than this crew in this event, absolutely. And Henley, you know, we mentioned them earlier very briefly as a favourite coming up in this event, and you know, they have always been punching in the semi-finals, finals of this event for a number of years, you know, with different sort of sets of athletes. And it looks to me that Borlays are absolutely no walkover, let's be honest. Borlays, again, always really good producers of strong women's sculling boats, and Henley are making it look easy off the start there. So that just goes to show you the quality of this Henley crew that we've got racing here in this junior quadruple sculls event. They've opened out to about a length lead over Borlays, which is, you know, very, very good at this stage, you know, 300 metres in, barely even that actually. And having raced this course probably a number of times over the last few weeks, whilst, you know, once the course had been laid out, I suspect Henley have practiced this particular run day in, day out, and practiced this starts this point, and will know all the markers on the course and will know exactly what they're doing to call for the rest of their crew.
A hugely experienced, this crew as well. I mean, you've got Lottie Orr in there, who's already a GB international. You've got Georgina Robinson Ranger, who's won a number of national events. You know, the whole crew incredibly experienced, and they don't get flustered. And they'll just be pushing out. When they went past our commentary point, again, they looked relaxed because they absolutely, I know some of these girls, they are not arrogant, but they are confident in their ability.
And they have to be, because throughout the course of this season, so since September, they will have been racing Borlays, they will have been racing Marlow from down the road, they have been racing these two tideway crews that we've just seen coming up in the previous race, you know, who race on the same stretch of river practically, St Paul's and the guys from Thames, and they'll have had the same between Borlays and Marlow and everyone else. So they need to have that confidence, because if you don't, you know, you let it slip for one race, you open the door for somebody else to come in and take a title or take a win over you, and that knocks your confidence for the rest of the season. So
I think it's, Camilla, safe to say that Henley are probably going to go on to win that. So we're back down to race 163, which is Isle of Ely Rowing Club against William Perkins School. So we've got Isle of Ely on the Berkshire station, which is on the left as you look. The umpire just getting a little bit involved in there, but she's got them back on track. She's reaching for the megaphone. Is she? No, she's not going for it. So here we go. Isle of Ely against Sir William Perkins School. And it looks like the Isle of Ely have made the better start in their yellow Empacker boat. And they've transitioned now. It looks a little bit bumpy there, which is a bit surprising. It's so smooth here, and we've had very few cruisers going up and down, but just a couple of waves hit both crews there, made them bump around. They have a great shot of the Isle of Ely, who are now about length and a half ahead of Sir William Perkins School. And as we keep saying, and we'll repeat it again, these athletes will be racing really for about 500 metres, so they can get into that position where they can relax, shoulders relax, they can look back, they can react to any push from the other crews. But unless something awful goes wrong, they will be absolutely in control. And the Isle of Ely crew just going past there, again, very tall athletes, which makes their reach that much longer. I was talking to an Olympian last night, Richard Dick Lester, and he was saying, and with sadness in his eyes, that a good big un will always beat a good little un. And it's just one of those unfortunate things in rowing and sculling because of the levers. If you've got the power in the legs that will allow you to use those longer levers, longer arm levers, then you are just going to be able to pull more water than those athletes who are less tall. And that's what we're seeing a little bit here. Very lengthy, long strokes from the Isle of Ely. And as Camilla was saying earlier, what a wonderful shot. The quad is just a marvellous aesthetic boat to watch from a shot like that. So whoever's controlling the drone Well done. That's brilliant for all of us who are watching it. Again, remind you that neither of these boats have someone there whose sole responsibility it is to steer. So one of those athletes in the boat will be steering. It's not always, people think that it might be always the bowman, but actually when you come to side-by-side racing in a straight line, often not the bowman that steers. So it can be the three-man that steers. So we don't know actually, unless we've got something marked.
I don't think we have anything that tells us that actually, but yeah, you're right. Usually on a straight course, I mean, they've not got any corners to conquer. They've not got any sort of dramatic changes in direction. So actually having somebody who's nearer to the front of the boat, to the stern, as it were, actually they can see far more what's going on around them in terms of their line, and they have sort of markers off the start to allow them to get straight. So they sometimes can be far more effective at that than the bow person who's having to spin around or move their head to be able to see what's going on. And we've got the next race of this quadruple sculls off the start. So this is between Reading Rowing Club on the right-hand side of your picture there. And this is Vavi from Switzerland, who we've seen in a couple of different events. I think they're in the double sculls as well on the left-hand side of your picture. And Vavi, unfortunately, went out in that double sculls event, I think, earlier on today. But their quad seems to be performing a little bit better, actually. And they've taken about a length's lead over the crew from Reading Rowing Club just towards the end of Temple Island there. And
you can see Reading having some steering issues right there. So they've gone over to the Swiss side and now having to come back, because what we haven't seen is the umpire advising them to come back onto their own side, and again that will have cost them dearly. And the Swiss will be just lapping that up, won't they, looking back down saying thank goodness we're going in a straight line. And they look pretty smooth as well, don't they? So I wonder if they have come over and that this quad is their stronger boat.
Potentially, and brought the rest of the squad with them. You know, if they're coming over in mass, giving everybody an opportunity to race at this world famous course. You know, there's not very often, if you are travelling here to compete, that you'll get a chance to sit on that start line. And you know, they're certainly capitalising on the fact that they got a very good start and have rowed away to a pretty surmountable lead over the crew from Reading Rowing Club.
I'm surprised a little bit at Reading Rowing Club. They would need to pick it up as we look at the Swiss team there. The Reading crew have just gone past our commentary point, and I've said this a couple of times about Shiplake crews this last week. They look like a crew that's just had a week of exams. And we forget, well, it's easy to forget that a lot of these athletes will have been sitting or are sitting A-levels or IB exams right at the moment. So they've had to fit in, you know, training and academic work. I mean, social life, Camilla, as you know, goes out of the window. There's just two things, plus eating and sleeping, that these girls will be involved in, you know, the exams, preparation and training.
Yeah, and as we get that nice aerial shot again of this crew that come all the way from Switzerland to compete here at Henley Women's Regatta, they're just starting to glide into the centre of the river there, into the middle of the booms, and look at that. They look like they're the only ones out there on the course, and looks like a quiet period for boating as well. So what a fabulous shot of just them, you know, doing their own thing, executing their own race plan. And I think, you know, they're still rating reasonably high, actually, and I think they've probably got enough of a lead to at least take it down a little bit. So I don't know if they are just going to race it maybe to the 1,000-metre marker and then, you know, take it down for 500 metres, or whether they're just planning to prepare to race and you know, wanting to get as much practice in on the course as possible. Who knows? So, and again, from a very fast type of boat to back down to the